Hello and welcome to the March 2019 Sunshine Summit. My name is Heather and I am your host. This week, in association with Geeks Rising, we've brought to you a week of live streams to recognize and celebrate connections. Today is day 8, finale day, and we have an amazing day ahead with 2 groups of incredible guests. Thank you so much to everyone who has been part of this week so far. Thank you for coming along to see Paul Csomo from the Varmints podcast and Ducky McDuckson from the Duckracy.com, for Jim Collison at Home Gadget Geeks, for Steph Fuccio of Changing Scripts, Expat Rewind, and the Virtual Expats podcast, for coming to see Win Kelly Charles and from the Ask Win podcast, and Mark Diaz from Mark's Movie Collection, Adela Mizrachi from Podcast Brunch Club, and Nick Haskins from Epic Film Guys and Livestream for The Cure. Yesterday we were joined by Dean and Nath from Regen Racing and Either or Neither podcast. And today, to begin part 1 of the finale of the Sunshine Summit for March 2019, is Chris and Kaylee Osborne from Play Comics and the Meddling Kids podcast. Welcome to the Sunshine Summit.
Yeah,
Hello.
really glad you let us come on.
I'm very grateful and pleased that you're here. It's been awesome getting to know you over the last little while, and you began with a really great question of what is our kind of origin story, and that got me thinking about what you do with Play Comics and things like that. So Play Comics is your podcast where you look at games and the comics and how they relate to each other. But they have origin stories within them. And when I was thinking back to how we first connected, my story was a little different to your story.
It's really interesting how, we've got basically the same thing. We're coming from the same place and we're both seeing it a completely different way.
Yeah.
Like, I know on my end, Paul Csomo had been going on and on about how great your show was and how it was something you needed to listen to. And I'm sitting here subscribed to at least 100 different shows and trying to find every excuse to not listen because I didn't want to add something else to listen to. And one day he just broke me down and I started listening. And, of course I had to keep listening to it because when you look at it, it's amazing.
Thank you. And then I saw and discovered you sort of through groups like the Underdog Podcast Community, which is an incredible community of people, of indie podcasters. And I'd seen you there, and you do this amazing thing on social media where you share a lot of the comics. And you managed to set them all up in advance and they go out. And recently it's been Garfield.
Yeah, that one was a lot of fun. Garfield is something that I grew up kind of tangentially paying attention to when my parents subscribed to the paper and I still had access to it. And I mean, Kaylee still reads it in whatever online form she goes and looks at it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always liked Garfield, and my brother and I had like the collections of Garfield comics that we would read. So
That's awesome. But we've kind of missed the obvious point here. You two have a connection. That's one of the most important connections that we have here. Apart from the fact that we managed to connect with each other, you two have an incredible connection. So, would you be able to tell us your origin story?
Oh yes, we're married. That might be important for everybody to know. No, so we met in college. Kaylee went to Winthrop because it's like the best teaching college here in South Carolina. So of course she went there. That's what she wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there because my grandma went there and she wouldn't leave me alone about applying. So finally I did it just to get her to leave me alone about it. And when I finally went and visited, it looked like a pretty nice place. So I went.
Yeah.
And we both did honors college stuff. And the first day I met her, her roommate wanted to show us this Dr. Pepper pillow she had. And
you didn't say why the honors thing was important.
Oh yeah, we got to move in early.
Cool.
Which is the best thing ever. So
totally worth it.
We went up to see her friend's Dr. Pepper pillow, and I went and sat on Kaylee's bed. Like first day I'd met her.
It was a loft bed, so that was kind of weird.
Okay.
And we hung out with some of the same people, like we knew who each other were, but we didn't actually start dating until the beginning of that December.
Okay.
And we dated all through college and we got engaged like right at the beginning of my spring breaks, because I was student teaching, so my spring break wasn't with the Winthrop one, our senior year, and we got married that summer.
Wow. That's awesome. So what anniversary are you up to?
In July, it'll be 10 years.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Because in this day and age, that is a feat to get to 10 years. And I think that's really incredible. Yeah. And
I'm surprised she's put up with me for this.
You've managed to find ways to make it work, and that's amazing. And not only do you have that history together, but you also do the podcast together. So you have Meddling Kids, the Scooby-Doo podcast, which you do together.
Yeah, we took over that one from my friend Julie Ken because she just had to go be an adult and go back to school for things. And she sent me a message one day. It's like, hey, do you want to take this show over? And I mean, just from doing Play Comics, I knew that I couldn't do it by myself. So I came home and I asked Kaylee, and hey, Kaylee, do you want to go do a Scooby-Doo podcast with me?
And Scooby was my favorite show as a kid, so I agreed.
That's awesome. Cool. And so we just want to do congratulations to Adam, it's his 10-year wedding anniversary tomorrow. Congratulations, Adam. Yeah. Amazing. Hopefully you have a great celebration tomorrow, and thank you for being here to celebrate Connections today with us. You've got the 2 different podcasts, you've got the passion for games and comics, and how did all of that come about?
So we were sitting around playing, it was probably Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I don't remember which one exactly. But as we're playing, I'm sitting there telling Kaylee, this character couldn't really beat up this other one. And these guys really work together and something. And she was probably rightfully getting annoyed that I wasn't just sitting there playing the game with her.
Yeah.
And pretty much told me I should probably go make a podcast so I can tell other people who want to hear about it and not just her all the time.
Especially when I already knew half of what he was saying.
So I went and I stewed on the idea for way too long. And just one day I decided I was going to make it.
Yeah. And throughout that, you've covered a lot of different things. Have you had a favorite one that you've covered in your episodes?
I mean, it's like trying to pick my favorite child or something. I mean,
so we don't have favorites?
I can be a horrible parent and pick out a few of them.
Yeah.
But like the one with Miles Stokes from J.M. Miles Explain the X-Men is always going to be one of my favorites because their show is what really got me into comics podcasts in the first place. So just the fact that I could get him on there was amazing. Like I had been asking them off and on to come on the show since before I actually started doing it.
Yeah. And you managed to get them to come and be a part of it. And then Adam said anything with Paul.
Yes, anything with Paul, obviously. Paul is an interesting story in here too.
Okay.
When I started the show, I was going to do it just me. And then I realized quickly that I am too much of an anxiety-driven perfectionist to do that. So I got a local guy here and he was going to be on the show with me. And, life happened and he just couldn't keep up with it. And sometime around November-ish a few years ago, Paul jumped up and said, hey, if you ever want a guest on your show, let me know. I'll come on it. And then a few months later, I actually listened to him and got him on. And they're definitely, he's great. And just the fact that he would come look at this little nothing show and come on it and be on it. And especially at that time, I saw him as, he's this super successful podcast. He's everywhere.
And he is everywhere. I don't know how he does it.
Magic.
Yeah.
I don't think he actually does his job at his job. I think he does this instead.
Have we let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, and drop the secret of how he manages to keep up with everything?
It's either that or he's cloned himself.
Okay. Yeah. Could be. He may not be in the chat just yet because he may be out doing something else quite important.
Yes, he told me what it was, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but it is a perfectly valid reason.
Okay. And I'm sure he'll catch the replay afterwards. But yeah, he's been an amazing connection for you on this journey.
Yeah, he was a nice little kick in the butt to get me going with the way I needed to do it, because I realized real quick after my original co-host left that I can't sit there and talk about Spider-Man 5 and 6 and 7 times and have it actually be entertaining. I needed to get some fresh views in there. And like, I've had Kaylee for a few episodes, especially for things that I don't know about, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Little Nemo episode we did, is a lot of people come on and say either that's one of their favorites because they love the game and they didn't really know where it came from when they were a kid, or they know the comic and they love that I actually did it because I realized it was a comic and didn't just skip over it.
Yeah.
I only knew the movie growing up, but I loved it.
Cool. We've had Real Feels Pod in the chat. Yay, Chris.
Yay, Real Feels.
Welcome. And of the ones that Kaylee's been a part of, what was the topic of those ones?
We did Little Nemo. He's pulled me in for a few that he just couldn't get things scheduled with somebody else.
Like Smurfs was a big one. I'm
Smurfs.
really happy you did.
And then Asterix. I have a really hard time saying it in English because I was introduced to it in French class and I've mostly read it in French.
Oh, wow.
So I called dibs on all of those.
Yeah. I have a thing here with me. I have a very bent up, broken Asterix and the Roman Agent, which
awesome.
I picked up from my high school library, I think, back in the day. And this one is, I don't own terribly many comics, to be honest, but this one is from 1970, and this one might have been published in 1970. Or I don't know, but it's definitely been well loved and poured through, and I had to take it home and look after it and give it a bit more life, and I've really enjoyed reading it over the years and coming back to it.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
No, I've really loved being introduced to that one because that's not one I would have picked up on my own.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot of wordplay and like intelligent comedy to go with all of the silliness that happens in there. I love it.
Yeah. There's so much that you can capture in a comic. Like, I last year spoke to Logan Norgal, who was host of The Paper Robots and has now got some other projects that he's working on. But he's a writer and working on some comics this year, and it's just amazing, like the art, but also the wordplay and the creativity and the cleverness of it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm trying to get some actual comic creators to come on. I mean, not just for having them on as a guest on the show for real, but like recently I had John Horsley come on just to talk about a comic that he's making right before a Kickstarter campaign they had going for it.
Cool.
I really want to get more things like that. I've got a few people I've kind of been talking to about it, but nothing really set well enough yet to talk about.
Okay. Have you supported any Kickstarters of any comics before?
Pretty much just John's.
Okay.
Everything else that I've seen, like I've seen a ton of them that I would have if I had realized they were going on fast enough. I just happened to miss all the announcements they did for it, or I realized who they were right toward the end of it and just didn't have time.
Yeah. But do you have a way of accessing comics and things, or do you just have a physical collection at home? How does that work?
I went digital for most of my stuff because I know what'll happen if I have physical. I used to play Magic the Gathering, and
it's not good.
Yeah.
Oh,
if we had physical copies, they'd be all over the place.
He would take over the entire house with it, and that would just it would be a fire hazard.
Okay.
Cardboard crack, like Real Feels says, is exactly what Magic is.
Yeah. That's a fun way of describing it. How have you found keeping them all digitally then? Like, have you got a great service that you use for that, or how do you get them digitally?
Marvel Unlimited has a really good thing. DC has kind of going comicsology with stuff, but a lot of it for me has been Humble Bundle,
Mm-hmm.
and going and grabbing whatever bundles they have.
Cool. You sent that to me and showed me, and it looked really interesting. And there is a wide variety that you can get through that, which is awesome. I have another resource here, The Wolf for Caleb, which is a comic that I supported on Kickstarter by Jason Pittman, and that was through my connection with Logan Norgal as well. And it was interesting. That whole side of it was interesting because when they do them, for example, Jason did a live stream and you could get to see him live and connect with him and ask him questions about it before, like while the Kickstarter was in progress before it closed. And it's just really amazing, like this, having the opportunity to hang out and see or hear more behind the process and more behind the things that we don't necessarily talk about in our podcasts, or that you don't get from reading the comic, or that insight that you can't get from the people who develop the games, unless they do interviews on it and things like that. So if anyone in the live chat has any questions for us as we go along, or if you have connections to celebrate with us, or highlights or things from the year of the Play Comics podcast that has been recently, you've celebrated the podversary for that.
Yep. I'm calling March 6th my podversary because that's when I started having guests in the format the show is in now. I'm
Okay.
Josh Bowman from, I'm completely blanking now what his show is. I'll have to tell you later.
Cool.
But I feel horrible about that now. But I was just sitting there in one of the, excuse me. I was sitting there in one of the Facebook groups, just, yes, I know I'm going to do this Silver Surfer game. I don't really know what's going on. And he just happened to see it at the right time. And yeah, I'll come on. Faith Deficit, that's his show.
Cool.
I'm glad it finally came to me. So he came up and yeah, I'll come on this episode with you. And so I'm like, okay, sure. And then realized afterward, I have no idea who this guy is. I hope he's good. But we go record and it was a great episode.
Oh, good. That worked out.
Definitely.
Yeah. There's a couple of questions. One is from Derek from Rolling Misadventures, who was a guest last year. Welcome, Derek. Which comic or game combo are you most looking forward to covering later on?
Okay, so I've never seen the Catwoman movie. I'm not just answering this because it's Derek. I actually want to see that movie and see how it goes with the game, because when that game came out, it's right in the middle of horrible movie tie-in games.
Oh.
And from everything I've heard, it's a super horrible. Yes, the Halle Berry one.
Okay. Okay.
From everything I've heard, it's a super horrible game. And it's a super horrible movie. And I feel like I'm ready to get exposed to that. And I'm probably nowhere near ready.
Oh, there's a run,
Chris. And run away.
Yeah. Uh-oh. That sounds tricky.
I mean, other than that, it's just the Capcom Fighters, because that is really what the series started out from. And I've got some really good guests signed up for that.
Cool.
And it covers a whole lot of comics.
Yeah. I mean, Kaylee's going to be coming back on for that one.
Yay.
Miles Stokes is coming back on. Chris Sims is coming back on. I mean, it's going to be a good little lineup of episodes there.
Yeah. Is there one that you're excited about, Kaylee?
Not really. I'm not as involved with Play Comics as he is, and mostly I just get excited whenever we find something French that I can come on and do, because then I'm the expert
Cool.
for once and not him.
Yeah. What's your connection to French then?
I studied it in school, and when I was in French 2 in 9th grade, my dad went on a trip to Quebec, and I asked him to bring me back one of my favorite Harry Potter book in French. And from that, I taught myself to read in French. And it's just something that I have always loved, and I picked it up pretty easily, and I have nobody to practice with because everybody around here studies Spanish because we have a lot more Hispanic, a much bigger Hispanic population. So it's just something that I have fun with. And now I have the first 4 Harry Potter books in English and French, and the French ones are bound better. So I read it in that language more often.
That's awesome. That is so cool. I studied French when I was in school, like when I was much younger, but I didn't take it much further than that. And I would have loved to. I really enjoy languages and learning them. And it is hard when you don't have anyone to practice with. Very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you could, would a trip to France be on your bucket list? What things to do or?
Definitely. And the summer that we graduated college, we took a trip to Europe, but France was like a day and a half in Paris. And I really want to spend more time and not have to run from museum to museum to see all of the sites and stuff like that. So I would love to go back and see more of France and see the stuff that we missed out on the first time.
Yeah, a day and a half.
Actually see the things we saw the first time too, because like we ran through the Louvre and technically saw everything that was open that day
with your eyes, but then not absorbing it and taking it in.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we had so many places we wanted to see and not enough time.
Was it just the timing of the trip and you had to move on to somewhere else, or was it just?
We were with a tour group, so we had to meet the group at certain times. Like we had a picnic lunch under the Eiffel Tower, and we had to get to there, and then and meeting the bus was kind of important so we wouldn't get left behind.
Definitely. Yeah. So hopefully next time if that's on the cards when you get there, that you do definitely have time to make it and stay there and see all the things and take your time and really absorb yourself in it, because amazing culture over there. Real Feels Pod said the Louvre takes so long to go through properly at a walking pace and spending about 10 seconds to just look at each piece. You'd have to spend 30 days to go through it. Too much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's just so much culture in there.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how low the security is too. Like I could have licked some of the paintings.
I don't think they would have let you get away with that. The security was just hidden from you, Chris.
Right. But it was close enough. I could have done it.
I
think it's
Trisha said the same thing about the Vatican.
Oh. You managed to make it to the Vatican as well?
Yep.
A quick trip around there?
Yep. Paris was like the end of I think we saw 12 different cities.
Yeah, something like that.
And Paris was the very end before we went back to London to fly home.
Yeah.
But Vatican was kind of in the middle of the trip, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I've been to the Vatican
I thought
also.
I'd never see in person.
Yeah. I managed to go there when I was about 17, and I went on a choir trip and we got to sing there, which blew my mind. Trisha, I think it is, said that they got lost several times in one day at the Louvre, and they tried to do Paris in one day. Bad idea. Not enough time.
Definitely need more time.
You don't get lost in the Louvre. You just take a different route than you thought.
That's
it's not like there's anything bad to see in there.
True.
That's true.
Yeah. It's a good way of looking at it. You do an amazing thing in the way that you connect with people as well. You have a thing where on Tuesdays you send messages to people, and I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's why I sit out in the driveway when I get home on Tuesdays, because I don't want to do it at work. And
you could do it inside the house.
Yeah, I know, but still. So I figured there's nothing really important that happens on Tuesdays besides taco night. And so I decided I'm going to take Tuesdays to send somebody a message just to tell them how much I appreciate them and how great they are. And, I try to spread it out so it's not the same people all the time. But it is always, people that I've actually had real conversations with and stuff. So I'm not just randomly finding somebody and sending them a message and they're, hey, who's this creepy guy sending me a message? But I kind of also decided on Tuesday because of the Street Fighter movie. And there's a scene there where M. Bison and Chung Li are just in a room and she's talking about all this horrible stuff that Bison did to her family, and he killed her father and ruined her whole village. And he just looks at her and is like, I don't remember any of that. And how could you not remember any of that? It was the worst day of my life. Well, to me, it was a Tuesday. So
Whoa.
I'm like, you know what? Like, it's the complete upside down reasoning for it. But I'm taking it as here's this thing that I can do for somebody it's I mean, I don't want to say it's nothing, but it's such an easy little effort for me to go in and tell them, hey, I think you're a great person and keep doing the cool things you're doing.
Yeah.
And to them, it's probably a much bigger deal than it is to me, but I kind of sometimes get a weird feeling of who needs to hear the message, and sometimes it's just I haven't talked to this person in a while, so I'll tell them.
Yeah.
And it always seems to work out.
Yeah. Real Feels Pod said, little effort, sir, great outcome. Also said that you literally made his terrible day better with a message that you sent. Made him know that there's some actual good people out there. It's incredible.
Yeah, there are a few of us left.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've received a message before. I'm really grateful. It is amazing. And they're short and sweet, and it might be something kind of random. And it just sort of breaks whatever you might have going through your head to have this someone outside of your whatever's going on for you that you know that you're important enough to send a message to, and whatever your lovely words are that you use to send to them. So I really appreciate that. I think it's an amazing thing that you do, and it would be awesome if more people got on board and let people know. And I think you've asked people to do that as well, to get on board with that and help.
Yeah, I mean, the voice messaging thing in Facebook Messenger, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of a little bit got the idea to use that from Tawny Plattis because I didn't really realize that was a thing people used.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I can send somebody and just text them a message, but, I do that all day long. Doesn't matter. But if I've taken just that minimal extra effort to go and actually say the words to them, it just seems to have a lot more of an impact and throws out a feeling that you can't really capture just in text.
Yeah. Voice is amazing, and like today, here, seeing and hearing you is awesome. And it's hard that we can't do that exactly with everyone in the live chat, but very exciting that they're watching and listening and participating there. Derek said he went out of his way to make sure to send hugs from other folks I was seeing at PodCon as well.
Yes, and I wish I was there to see both of their faces when they realized that I asked both of them to give each other a hug for me.
Oh,
It's all he would talk about for like a week.
That is awesome. That is so cool. Welcome, Panther. Nice to have you here. Yeah, it is amazing. I hadn't actually used the voice feature thing in the messenger before. I think you'd messaged me with it, and it was a little bit tricky for me. I kind of let my thumb go of, or the finger go of the button, so it stopped recording, and I think I sent you a weird short clipped message.
Oh, I've done that a few times when I forget that pulling your finger up makes it just erase everything, but pulling it to the right just releases it and sends them whatever random piece of garbage you recorded.
Yeah. It's not too hard though, and yeah, it is an amazing thing, and people do definitely appreciate it. Obviously, welcome to the chat. Another thing that you've done is you've had, was it an episode called Attack of the Feels? I'm just bringing all the feels into this episode.
Yeah. I mean, let's be real though. Anybody who knows me knows that was going to happen anyway. So in December on Play Comics, I was having trouble booking people for, just because the holidays are crazy, and I didn't want to have a bunch of episodes with Kaylee. And so I decided that I was just going to go and make essentially a giant Tuesday episode.
Yeah.
And so I just went through and, here's the Jay and Miles stuff and everybody I've met through them and how great that is. And then here's the Paul Csomo half of the podcast family tree and everybody I met because of him and deciding to stay in the Facebook groups he was in. It's like everybody pretty much branches off of one of those two for me.
Yeah. That's very cool. And you managed to capture a lot of other people in that episode too. And yeah, the feelings were there. And it's awesome to hear that, because in our content, we can share the content matter, whatever we're talking about, and the inside of how you got along your journey, who helped you along the way, what you're grateful for. It's always amazing to be grateful, and sharing that kind of little light on everyone is really awesome. And obviously I resonate with that 100%. So
yeah, did you remember to set it up so that I can put links in here?
I will be able to help you do that in a second. Sorry.
Okay. So eventually I'll throw a link up to that and everybody can see it.
This is super exciting. But if there's something else you can talk to while I sort that out.
I know Real Fields up there was asking my favorite underrated superhero. And I mean, that's kind of a little bit of a hard one for me because I tend to like the ones that I know about. I didn't grow up reading the comics, so I pretty much know about the mainstream people.
Yeah.
I know there are some games that I'm looking forward to because it'll just be interesting to see how games go. Like Superman 64 should be a good one. And Superman is a character that I hear a lot of people talking about as, oh, he's just overpowered. He's brought back up from like the 20s and 30s, and there's no way he'd be made today. And if he was, he'd be there for an episode or two.
But didn't he pretty much start the superhero genre? So
yeah, I mean, so just the longevity is the only reason he's still there.
Yeah, you should be able to drop a link now.
What about overrated superhero?
Overrated for what kind of games they get, or for just in general?
But apparently the feels, I hear they're the realist. That was awesome. I love that.
I've heard that too many times.
Yeah. Does anyone in the chat have a story of a comic, their favorite comic or favorite comic and game combo, or anything that stood out as not being so great for them? Or do you have memories, nostalgia around Scooby-Doo? And because that is the Meddling Kids podcast. Yeah. I remember watching Scooby-Doo as a kid a lot. And looking back on some of them now, it's like crazy. And I think I might have got a little bit scared at some of them. Like the graphics are kind of a little bit scary. Some of them.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising.
Yeah.
And there have been a few things that I've noticed where they made serious animation mistakes. Like they have the completely wrong voice coming out of somebody's face. And that happens in almost every episode. But I never noticed that as a kid.
Yeah. Are there any other quirks and things that you've noticed, or has there been any great conversations that have come up about from doing the Meddling Kids podcast and Scooby-Doo?
A lot of it for us has been like, there's one that we just recorded that's going to be out in the next couple days, where it's one of the movies from the 70s, and Davy Jones has a castle, or his uncle has a castle rather, and somehow he didn't realize that there was a giant cave system underneath the castle. And I just cannot understand why you wouldn't have a castle and go explore every single inch of it, because I would want to know where every single secret passage was.
And the secret passages were kind of important, but everybody was surprised that they existed.
Okay.
Even though it's a really old castle. I think they said 15th century or something like that. So of course there are secret passages.
How could there not be? I mean, come on.
Yeah. And they brought it over brick by brick, so they would have had to see every bit of it when they brought it over.
You know, Tim brings up the Harlem Globetrotters episodes, and I love those. They're just so much fun.
Cool. Real Feels
somehow mixing in basketball.
Real Feels said an amazing comic series was the Amalgam series, where they made combinations of heroes from DC and Marvel together. Great comic line.
That's one I haven't had time to check out yet.
Okay.
Sounds like fun, though.
Yeah, it's definitely on my list of things to do.
Cool. TV channel that ran a marathon of Scooby-Doo, Tim. Wow.
Nice.
Have you done a marathon of Scooby-Doo then?
Well, Cartoon Network used to do like a 6-hour chunk where they would play a whole bunch of one series, and I always watched it when they were doing the Scooby-Doo one, but that's as close as I've come.
Okay, cool. And Real Phil said that you recently talked about Scooby-Doo in the Ghoul School. That was a favorite of theirs as a kid.
I'm glad that you remembered which one it was, because it kept escaping me.
Really?
Like I if I was going through looking at screenshots, I could have told you exactly which one it was.
I loved that one as a kid.
Yeah, and
that was a good one.
Scooby-Doo with the Harlem Globetrotters, said Mark D, was super fresh.
I found out doing research before our last episode that had the Globetrotters in it that they had their own TV show, so it was kind of a crossover thing, and I had no idea that they were anything other than a basketball team as a kid, and I only knew they existed because of Scooby.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like all the random things that we found out, just animation wise and stuff, they're really interesting. Like Scooby-Doo was one of the first ones that I've been able to come across where, they've really started to reuse background animation and stuff like that. And Fred has the ascot because it's easier for them to just draw his head over and over again than it was to have to draw the entire character.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of stuff like that.
That you would not necessarily come across if you were doing the podcast and looking at it that closely?
Yeah, I would have just watched Scooby-Doo to watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
because it's definitely a fun show in itself, but when you're watching it for something like this, you can't just go on and say, yes, I really like Scooby-Doo. This episode was great. You got to have something else to go with it.
Yeah, with the mechanics behind it and how it goes together. Yeah. Mark said, most ambitious crossover event of the decade, Globetrotters and Scooby-Doo.
I mean, the Globetrotters lost to the Scooby Gang, so.
Well, there you go. That would have been their worst loss. No, one of their worst losses.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. How do you find the time to play the games and look through the comics and watch the Scooby-Doo and get together and do the podcast together? It's amazing that you do podcasting together, because having that common interest in podcasting is amazing, and being able to share that with your significant other, I think, is awesome. But how do you find all the time to do all of this?
I know, right?
There's a reason it's been a while since we put out a Scooby-Doo episode.
Okay.
Scooby is a little tougher because we just kept having life things happen, and
we took it over right before the holiday season, and my family and I have a small fiber arts crafting business, so we were doing a lot of craft shows and holiday markets and stuff, and I had zero time, so I'm like, we're gonna have to put this on hold.
Yeah.
And then stuff kept coming up every time we were about to finally record this episode. So it took us until now to pick it back up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for Play Comics, it's a little easier because I'm the only one who has to be doing something with it constantly.
Yeah.
The guests can just come in, they do whatever research they need to do on it, because I pretty much let them pick what they want to come on for.
Yeah.
So hopefully they're picking something that either they wanted to check out by themselves anyway, or they already know a lot about.
Yeah.
So I hope the research on their end is kind of minimal.
And for a lot of the games, we own most of them anyway. but he doesn't have time to master all of them. Some of them are almost impossible. So we'll look up playthroughs or things online where people are either doing a speed run so we can at least see a little bit of every part or something like that. And that tends to help.
That's cool.
Yeah, because I'll play at least enough of all of them so that, you know, I know how the mechanics are in the game. I know how it feels. I know how the controls are. But essentially, I'm taking the show as more like a book versus movie podcast. So I don't really care if the game is horrible. I care more that
how it links.
It's an accurate representation of the comic.
Yeah. Have you found the majority of them have been, like, just doing a quick summary? I know that's a gross summary to make, but generally, has the trend been that they've related well, or is it very a mixed bag?
Since I'm going chronologically, I'm just getting to the end of Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era stuff now, and it's kind of mixed bag there.
Okay.
Because when you get the super early things, they didn't really know how to make the games as well. You know, especially the Atari stuff.
That wasn't even close. The
yeah,
Superman one was the closest, and that one was painful.
Oh.
But as they're getting newer, they're getting a lot better.
Okay.
And so I don't expect to find anything, especially PlayStation and on, where it's just a horrible representation. You know, unless it's a movie tie-in game and the movie was horrible.
Okay.
And in that case, as long as it sticks to the movie, it's like, oh, okay, I can deal with that.
Yeah. Do you present them as a timeline on your website? How are you? It's episodes, right? But you're following a timeline through?
Roughly. Like, I'm not getting hung up on, you know, this was released in August and this other one was released in September, so I have to do the August one first.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, I mean, I'll mix up years a little bit. I'll do that. And I'm really trying to finish up the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis stuff before I get into the PlayStation stuff. Because I'm trying to make it so, like, I'm not comparing Arkham Asylum to the NES Batman game.
Okay.
That just wouldn't be fair.
Yeah, I mean, once you start looking at newer games, it's really hard to go back and say that, yes, this is such an older game and it doesn't do as well as this one we already looked at, even though the one we already looked at was made 20 years later.
Yeah. Too different. So what is coming up for the year ahead for both Play Comics and Meddling Kids, you think?
For Meddling Kids, mostly it's getting more consistent with putting it out.
Okay.
We were fairly consistent when we first took it over, and then holidays and life stuff happened. So,
I think we're going to switch to an every other week release thing because I do most of the research for it, and there's just no time to do that and get it recorded and get it released and edited and stuff all in the same week with work and everything else. So
you know, for Play Comics, it's the only real big thing I have planned is that kind of Capcom Fighters little miniseries thing. Because other than that, I mean, the games are just going to keep coming out. They're going to keep popping out. You know, there's not really too much you can add in there. You know, there might be a bonus episode here and there if I can get creators that want to come on and talk about games that they're making or comics they're writing or something.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you know, that's a show where the schedule was pretty much made before I started making the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's awesome that you've been making connections through that by bringing guests on and with what you're connecting with through the content of the comics and the games and doing all the research that goes into Meddling Kids and that you do that together. And then you're creative. Kaylee, you were talking about the craft things that you do, which is amazing. Have you always been into craft then? And what are the fiber light arts? Is what did you call it? Sorry.
Fiber arts.
Fiber arts.
Yeah, when I was in 3rd grade, my grandma taught me how to sew.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to sewing camp that summer, which was awesome. And I learned even more, like all of the technical parts of the sewing machine, which I mostly can't name at this point. But I learned how the machine worked and I learned about different fabrics and stuff. And then at some point in middle school, I learned how to cross stitch. And then my mom taught me how to knit. And then when I was in college, my mom picked up spinning. And she kept trying to get me to learn how to spin yarn. And I did not want another craft because I already had too many.
Yeah.
And I eventually tried it and got hooked on spinning. And so now we're doing hand-woven jewelry out of our hand-spun yarn. My parents have goats that we get mohair from. And I've also taken up tatting, which is a style of lace making that's a lot more durable than knitted or crocheted lace.
Wow.
And I just always have some sort of string or fluff to play with. And I like to make things, and it gives me something to do in my free time.
That's awesome. But how you find free time, I'm not sure. But it's cool that you have that creative passion and that it's connected you with fibers. So is that why you are passionate about sheep?
Yes. My mom originally wanted to get sheep, and then she was told that goats are more fun and have more personality, so that's what she went with. And she has Pigora goats, so they're small and fluffy and very cute, and a lot of people think they're sheep when they see them from a distance. But yeah, I go to a fiber fair with my mom every year in North Carolina, and we get to see all the different sheep and all the different goats, and that's where we stock up on spinning stuff, because the fiber arts are not very huge in Charleston where we are. They're a lot bigger up in the mountains. So we have to drive 6 hours to get to all the good stuff.
Wow.
And it's worth it, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a little mother-daughter trip that we get to take every year. So
that is awesome.
It's been a good thing.
Yeah. Do you appreciate that your mum has the goats and you don't have to look after them, or would you like some of your own?
I wouldn't mind having some of my own, but they've been kind of expensive to deal with. So
yeah,
this way I get to go over and help sometimes, but I don't have to do the hard stuff.
Yeah. We have the merino sheep here as one big example of a fiber that people use, and alpaca fiber is becoming quite popular, and possum is another one. So they blend sort of merino and possum together to make a whole bunch of different things here. And I've been sending some sheep pictures every time that I can catch a picture of some sheep. I'll send them kind of in your direction. So I'm trying to entice.
I have been loving those.
Yeah. Tim said opossum, and no, we have just possums here, not opossums.
I've heard that possums are really soft and make good yarn, but I haven't gotten to try it yet.
Yeah, they are incredibly soft. And yeah, hopefully we can entice you to head this way if you ever manage to make it, and so we can hang out and see some sheep.
I would love to go over there sometime. It's going to take a while to save up for plane tickets, though.
Oh, yeah.
The plan is to go over there on vacation and just forget to come back.
Okay, good. I'm all on board with that plan. The more people that we can come, the better. We also have a connection to cats, so we're going to change the chat to a cat chat for the last segment of this. If anyone has any stories or questions for us, do let us know in the chat while we go. But you have some cats that are an important part of your life.
We have 2 cats. We have Nix, which is sleeping behind my chair now.
We were going to try to get her on, but she decided she'd rather run around the room and smell everything.
She was, and everyone missed her in the pre-chat. Yeah.
And then we have Thor, who likes to eat cords, so he's not allowed anywhere near this room.
Yeah.
And Thor has a fun backstory.
Cool.
My aunt and uncle lived down in St. John in the Caribbean. And last year or the year before?
Last year.
They got hit by 2 Category 5 hurricanes within 2 weeks of each other. And the whole island had no power for like 3 months. They got it back 2 days before Christmas.
Wow.
And the hurricanes hit in the fall, like in September. And after the second hurricane had gone through, somebody found Thor, who was 6 weeks old at the time, in the ruins of Adela that was like right by the beach. So it was yards from where the water came up. And he's a loudmouth, so he was probably meowing really loud. But they turned him into a vet that my aunt was going to talk to see if she needed help, because she knew somebody in the States who like shipped medicine to vets and stuff. And so she was trying to coordinate what the vet needed.
Yeah.
And the vet didn't have a generator. So my aunt offered to take Thor in and foster him. And she sent pictures, and he was tiny. They had him posed next to some sort of nut, a pistachio or something, and it was almost as big as his head. He was itsy tiny, and he's still a small cat.
Yeah.
And so I said that I wanted him and talked Chris into letting me have him. And he is the strangest cat I've ever had, and he is too smart for his own good. He's figured out how to break into so many things. And he's also like really shiny. His fur is not as thick as other cats I've had.
Yeah.
And it's really slicked down. So he's semi-waterproof. He'll jump in the tub after anybody's taken a shower and just splash in the puddles. And he'll run out of the house in the rain and get soaked on the outside, but 5 minutes later, he's completely dry because it just kind of rolls off of him. And he's just completely entertaining. He's got a major personality.
That is awesome. What a story. Tim said that's one tough cat.
Yeah, we named him Thor because after living through all that right at the beginning, we figured he had to have some kind of little weather powers.
Especially if he's 6 weeks old at the time. He's a tiny baby.
Gosh.
So if he was a girl, he would have been named Storm, but he's not a girl.
Yeah. He's the mightiest, said Tim.
Yes.
So how old is he now then?
He's a year old.
Just a year old.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh. And he gets along with
If anybody's
Nick.
seen me posting pictures of a cat sitting in a sink,
Yeah.
that's Thor.
Yeah, he's drawn to the water, but he doesn't like the wind. When I've taken him outside on his leash and it's the least bit windy, he poofs up and tries to hide. So
Okay.
I think the wind bothered him more about the hurricane than the rain.
Yeah. What a little survivor. That's amazing. And it's very cool that he's now got a home with you guys, and he gets along with Nyx.
Mostly. He's an annoying little brother, but she was chubby when we got Thor, and now she's almost to her ideal weight because he's always chasing her around the house.
That is awesome. And they are great companions. I have a cat too. I really love him. He had a bit of a story, not quite to the epic level that Thor had, but was dumped and found by someone at the end of the road and with a bunch of his brothers and sisters. And there were 2 little ones left, and I saw a picture of them and I knew that I had to take them home, and so I called them Midnight and Shadow, and we've got Shadow still with us.
Oh,
yeah. Hashtag Black Cats Are Awesome is going to be like, I like to share that everywhere on social media, but do check out the picture of Thor in the sink pretending to be dishes. That is such a good photo.
Yeah. He loves the sink and he loves the dishwasher. He is convinced that he is dishes.
Oh my gosh.
Eventually, I hope that we can get him to stop eating cords so I can bring him in here and we can get a picture of Podcats.
Podcats would be awesome. Yes, we need to unite and bring the Podcats together.
Yes.
Cool. Well, we have here this one. Make sure I don't push the wrong page. These are all the amazing ways that you can connect with Chris and Kaylee through Play Comics on Twitter, and for both of them, Play Comics and Meddling Kids Pod. And you've got a Facebook page for the official Play Comics page, and there is one for Meddling Kids as well, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, I don't have that link here, but I can get that afterwards. And Play Comics is on Instagram.
Yep.
Yeah, Play Comics Podcast on Instagram. You've got playcomics.com, and the Meddling Kids website is
meddlingkidspod.com.
Cool. And Ninja Penguin Pods is your Patreon. And is it like what is the Ninja Penguin Pods?
So back in college, I had a radio show, and for whatever random reason, well, let me back up a little bit. On my show, I would make a theme for every episode, and that was just a way for me to cut everything down, because otherwise I'd never decide what I wanted to play. It'd be things like songs with black in the title, or anti-Valentine's Day songs or something. And I had a big old notebook, and I would print off the playlist because the way they had the radio station set up, they had a 5-disc CD player, and I knew that I'd never be able to use all those, but I would make 2 mixed CDs and just work off of that. And I would print off the playlist for each CD that I brought, and then I could just check things off as I played them.
Mm-hmm.
And I had Kaylee draw me just a picture of a penguin being a ninja to have on the front, just because I thought it'd be cool. And the name has just kind of stuck with me for a while. And so I thought, when it came time for Patreon and I was finally ready to do it, that's about when we were getting Meddling Kids. So I felt like it was just, rather than have a Patreon for one thing and not the other, or having separate Patreons for them, we just have one thing to umbrella them under.
Yeah, that is cool. And if you enjoy the things that Chris and Kaylee do, go ahead and check that out and share the podcast, listen to it, engage with them, and chat with them about your experiences with either the comics and the games or Scooby-Doo. And yeah, have fun and tell someone on a Tuesday or any other day, because any day is a great day, but Tuesdays are good, that you care for them. Or what you think.
It doesn't matter what day you pick. Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
And randomly, when the Spidey senses are going off, just do it.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for being here today to share your stories. It's amazing. If anyone wants to know about the specific connections that you do mention in the Attack of the Fields, I think you linked to that before, and we can drop that again. But you've shouted out a lot of people, and there have been a lot of amazing people. There it goes. In your life, and who have been along the journey with you. That's awesome. I'm really grateful that we've connected, and you've been really supportive of everything that I've been doing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, you do great stuff. And, eventually we need to find a way to make you be a guest on your own Sunshine Summit, because you're worthy of being on here too. I
have possibly something in the pipeline for that one, so watch this space.
Everybody forget I said that.
Yeah. It won't be in this part. We're celebrating you guys today. Thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone who came by the live chat. It was awesome to see Real Feels Pod, Panther, Tim, Mark, Adam, Bandrew.
My friend Kate that popped up.
Yeah, Kate was there. That's awesome. And 2 girls on a bench, Trisha, I think. Amazing. And if I missed you, I'm sorry, but thank you for being here. We'll catch you in a little bit for the finale of today's Sunshine Summit. Bye, everyone.